Why does slowing down matter? As a child, I remember visiting my great uncle in Pennsylvania, a simple farmer born in 1907. I loved hearing him tell the story of the first time he saw an airplane. He heard an engine, which was a spectacle in itself, and ran to the road. It never occurred to him to look up. Instead, he followed the sound until, to his utter amazement, a biplane appeared just above the trees. He told the story with genuine awe. It was one of the most thrilling moments of his life. My great uncle witnessed a world greatly transformed. During the 20th century, humanity went from horse and buggy to the moon, computers, and the internet. Today, technological change continues to accelerate. It is moving so fast that the traditional generation gap may soon become a generation abyss, where two generations have surprisingly little in common. This matters because common ground is one of the foundations of community. I noticed this in my own art classes. During group critiques, many students instinctively connect a work of art to something they already know: a video game, a television series, or something from childhood. One student says, "That reminds me of fill in the blank." Another replies, "Oh, yeah." And then another, and another. Suddenly, a tribe begins to form through shared experience. Then they look at me and I have to say, "I'm sorry, but I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about." For my great uncle, today's world would have seemed like science fiction. We all carry computers in our pockets, computers that are more powerful than the first desktop computer I owned. We have email, text messages, social media, GPS, video calls, and so on. Much of this technology promised to save us time. But has it? Or has it simply given us more things to do, more things demanding our attention, more things that, in the end, may not matter very much? During graduate school in the 90s, I realized my education had done a poor job introducing me to the great works of literature. Between classes, making paintings, composing music, and working a job, I knew that if I wanted to read more, something had to give. So I did something that wasn't easy. I threw out my television. Over the next several years, I did read books like Moby Dick. But something else happened that I would have never expected. Because I only encountered popular television a few times a year, I began noticing something that people watching every day probably didn't notice. And that is that the time between cuts in television shows and commercials was getting shorter and shorter. Every time I encountered it, it felt noticeably faster. Why was this happening? Today, the answer seems obvious. The product isn't really cat videos, news clips, or advertisements. The product is your attention. Platforms compete to keep us engaged for as long as possible through an endless stream of novelties, rapid transitions, and bite-sized rewards. Nicholas Carr, in his book The Shallows, compares this to a rat maze, always receiving another small treat, another small distraction, another reason to continue scrolling, but never a full, nourishing meal, and never going deep. In that state, reading a book like Moby Dick becomes impossible. Attention is like a muscle, and as the saying goes, use it or lose it. But what happens if you never really develop that muscle in the first place? What does that feel like? Does it show itself as restlessness, anxiety, depression, or simply a vague sense that something important is missing. Perhaps the greatest cost of all is not distraction itself, but the inability to go deeper. Many of the most meaningful experiences in life unfold too slowly for an impatient mind. Deep friendships, learning an instrument or a craft, creating art, listening carefully, reading difficult books, understanding and knowing ourselves. None of these compete very well with an endless stream of bite sized novelties. When we look at brainwaves, we find that modern life constantly demands the faster beta state, our state of focused activity, problem solving, and often stress. There is certainly a place for beta, but living there continuously leaves little room for the slower rhythms associated with deep relaxation, restoration, and reflection. So, how do we slow down in a world designed to keep us speeding up? There are, of course, many paths. For me, one of the most effective is listening to slowly evolving ambient music or drone. It requires very little effort. You just simply listen. There are other ways, of course: meditation, yoga, exercise, making art, or simply spending time in nature. However, we do it, I have come to believe that slowing down is an essential antidote to an increasingly frenetic world. Slowing down could be perceived as an escape from modern life. But on the contrary, perhaps it is one of the few ways left to experience it deeply, as well as to help bridge the widening generation gap. And that's another thought worth thinking about. Thanks for watching and thinking. Bye.